Do not believe, I don't think I could ever be convinced that that's all by chance, that you have a prison gang, you have random families, you got Koberger moving across the state randomly. Hurwitz is now, is this just a coincidence he's working for that law firm after all this, after getting involved in what would have been a lone wolf narrative for a serial killer? No, he would never get involved in that. Does that seem normal to everybody?
And here we go.
Welcome to the Freak Show, the best in town.
If this is your first time in the Hive, welcome. I'm your host, Birdie. I go live every weeknight at 7 p.m. Central. This is a contrarian thinking live stream, so we are not afraid to think past the headlines, which means if you are somebody who's easily rattled or offended on behalf of others, you're probably not going to like this very much, but I would encourage you to hang out, see if you agree with anything that we say, and keep an open mind. If you are the tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist in your friend group that has to bite the bullet at Thanksgiving dinners or any other holidays when certain topics come up because you feel like maybe you know the truth and people that are your friends and family are just repeating these mainstream parroted talking points, well, you have found your people and you are amongst friends. Really want the Hive to be this place where everybody can come in and look forward to it each night, have a different opinion, duke it out in the comments, and know that our mods will give you enough leash to hang yourself. The only way you're going to get kicked out is if you're trolling, spamming, or threatening. When you guys see this photo, okay, we've known Josh Hurwitz has been a player in this Idaho 4 case. Anybody that can remember their initial thoughts on it, please let me know in the chat. I want to put some up on the screen. Camellia says, I peeped he got into office June 2022 and thought it was peculiar that they started looking back into BK in June of 2022. Yep. Les says, I honestly had no idea who he was. I'm ashamed to say, well, Les, I thought the Taj Mahal was in Russia. So you and I both. Taj Mahal's not in Atlantic City? That's funny. Big Amish Media, good to see you, brother. Initial reaction was, why was a federal prosecutor involved in a state court case? Now, I think that what Big Amish Media just asked, what were your guys' guesses on that? That's what I mean. It's almost like it's looking us all in the face this whole time. Nene Gallegos says, my thoughts were that it had to be bigger because of what he does for a career. Batshit Crazy said, here we go with some more deception and cover-up. Shoebooty 704 did the smart thing, looked up past investigations, tried to educate themselves on what is it that this Josh Hurwitz guy does, huh? Down the rabbit hole to hell says his drug trafficking experience piqued your thoughts to the cartels and drug running. Yes. ATL Drew, what's going on? Yep, he was put there to cover for the organizations they are really interested in protecting. Big forehead, big dreams. I would say this, like inside operation is how I would sum it up in 2 words, is what my thoughts were. And Sleeping Duck 2025 says, I look forward to being exonerated. Brian Christopher Koberger, just a reminder for Attorney Hurwitz. Very important word in that quote, and thank you so much for the super chat. That's epic. That important word being exonerated. That's a very specific word, and it's not just, I look forward to being proven innocent, like exonerated. Nothing. I literally am wiping my hands clean. I can't wrap my head around the fact of if Ann Taylor really didn't know why they were doing this to Brian, right? It seems like legally she's like, this is the most absurd thing. They're blocking this. She's getting frustrated. She's getting no help from Hippler. If anything, Hippler's mumbling and bumbling in the middle of her talking when she's trying to find exhibits and page numbers and references, and it's distracting. I can't imagine being the person actually talking. It's hard to even listen to. But if she wasn't looped into that to me was a little bit surprising if there's an operational aspect to it. Because I would have thought at least they could keep that contained in the court. That's why they've sealed it. That's why there was national security references. That's why there was little to no press or PR. Koberger didn't talk. That's why they stayed with the same narrative the whole time. Is that making sense to everybody? What I mean by that? Camellia says, but is BK a part of it? LOL. Well, that's what I'm going to try to figure out. There's a couple of things that we need to understand about an operation if it was going to happen to the level of Josh Hurwitz being brought in. And this is just my opinion. None of this should be taken as fact. I highly encourage everybody to do their own research on this stuff. Let's start with a simple poll in the chat. How many people here believe today, knowing what we know now, type of 1, if you still believe the Idaho 4 were random. Type of 2, if you believe they were not random. It's a simple question, but I just also like to do this to gauge if there's anybody that's newer here in the Hive.
Oh my God.
Yes, and Cat's Mojo beat me to the punch, but I do think, if you don't know this, Josh Hurwitz is now a partner with Holland and Hart, which is the law firm that is representing the University of Idaho for the purchase of Phoenix. More than 2 years after detailing plans to acquire the University of Phoenix, the University of Idaho won't be buying the for-profit college after all. The University of Phoenix said Tuesday that the two institutions agreed to, quote, end discussions regarding a potential affiliation. The $685 million deal was first announced in May of 2023. It was criticized by lawmakers and others in Idaho who worried about risks of acquiring a large for-profit university that faced significant scrutiny from regulators and allegations that it violated federal law. Now, how insane would this be if a college or university merger is somehow wrapped up in this with a motive? Because this, while it was known, it was really not referenced that much compared to all other things, right? Frats, drugs, cartel, area knives, trafficking, whatever it is, right? Quote, although we continue to see great value in University of Phoenix, it has become cost prohibitive and potentially distracting to our other work. To continue conversations, Idaho President Scott Green said in a statement, we respect the University of Phoenix and wish them all the best. We appreciate their commitment to these conversations, and we learned many things we may be able to incorporate into our work. The University of Idaho will get about $17.24 million in termination fees from Phoenix, according to the university news release. That money will cover Idaho's due diligence costs related to the deal and includes a $5 million payment to Phoenix, already paid for the extension agreement. The final dissolution of the slow-moving deal was largely expected. The two sides faced a June 10th deadline to rework the agreement and address concerns from lawmakers who failed to approve the acquisition last spring. In April, they have made little progress, according to the Idaho Education News. University of Idaho officials said they were waiting on Phoenix. Does that help clear things up for everybody as far as just like if you weren't aware of the merger? I hope so. Because like I said, it wasn't talked about as much. You know, I was aware of it going on in the background. But yeah, there's a name that does pop up, right? Very powerful name. What else does that name get tied to? One of the oddest things about this case, Sue's 46 got it. Top dog for you, Sue's 46. And owned it. Yeah, it's just crazy. Put yourself in Mr. Scott Green's shoes as the university president, and that happens already in a deal that lawmakers want no part of, that you've already put tens of millions of dollars into. And then that happens, right? I mean, that would absolutely be a motive for a cover-up. And I'm not claiming that that is for sure what happened. Again, this is just a theory. I want to make sure that I'm careful with that tonight. But I really think that who would have the money to do that? Who would have the ability to get, stuff like that done? Media companies, parents paid off, whatever it may be. Lisa Forward 23 says, oh, hell yeah, huge motive. LA Mike Life says, I like the direction you're headed. When Hurwitz got involved, what does Hurwitz usually get involved for? And where is Hurwitz at today? All public information. A little bit long of a preamble, but I wanted to make sure that we had people understand this merger. We had people understand there's a name that's been said many, many, many times, being the university president. We look at somebody who's powerful enough, who's got deep pockets, who's already put a lot into this, who probably couldn't have it go wrong. The deal ends up falling through. Hurwitz goes and now works for the law firm that was representing the university for this merger. Is that all by chance? So how many things can line up just having one of these oddities, whether it be what they say happened at the house, whether they say that, it was Koberger doing this randomly as a serial killer. And now you look at Hurwitz and that entire process. Is that mind-blowing to everybody? Does that seem normal to everybody? The way that even, they found Koberger's DNA, the sheath, the pictures, the media, the narrative, all this stuff. There's only one person that can do all of it. And it's the feds. Yes. That there is no way that all of these people are working separately and motivated separately, yet it's all still staying locked tight. That doesn't happen. Do not believe, I don't think I could ever be convinced that that's all by chance, that you have a prison gang, you have random families, you got Koberger moving across the state randomly. Hurwitz is now, is this just a coincidence he's working for that law firm after all this, after getting involved in what would have been a lone wolf narrative for a serial killer? No, he would never get involved in that. There's the millions of dollars for the study. There's no way that all those things separately can continue to line up over and over and over again. There's no way that the media wouldn't poke holes in one of those things. They have swayed 0 times. They have not asked any obvious question. Why are you getting mad at people like us for asking the most obvious questions that get answered in every other homicide case or in every other serial killer case? We're just asking the really obvious ones. When you don't get the answers to the really, really obvious questions, that's what leads to speculation, especially when you don't have any transparency in it, especially when you have things that are just blatantly not making sense. Kohberger's background, as I've been saying the last couple of streams, like, think with me through this. If you haven't heard this, let me try to, explain this. Look at how many people bought this narrative that because Brian Kohberger was a criminology student in which his literal studies and the prosecutor, the guy who just sent him to prison for life, threatening him with the death penalty, said, yeah, we didn't, and so did the investigators. They said, we didn't find anything that was out of the usual for him to be looking into that any other criminology student wouldn't be. Okay, well, that narrative's insane then. Yet nobody wants to talk about how this dude is applying for an internship and apparently doesn't get it, right? He's this ultra successful PhD student, and Pullman just says, nope, you're not, we don't want you. Goes on, becomes a TA, whatever it is. And we're to think that it's less of a stretch that Brian wouldn't continue down this path of going into law enforcement or working for the feds, worked under Ramsland, who was obviously tight with the feds, who was the only person to really talk with the BTK ever. They go, how did Ramsland miss that? She was able to, get through to the BTK. How did she miss Kohberger? Again, who's the most obvious narrative guy, right? He everybody knew it that knew him in his life, apparently. Except, oh, that's right. Nobody comes out and says that they have seen this guy, talk to him, except for like 2. And then they're attacked by everybody. It would be like you have a CEO of a company, of a Fortune 500 company, and they got 23 different divisions. Okay. Do any of us know what the 23 presidents of those divisions talk about on a regular basis? If you're a sales rep, or maybe if you work at the warehouse, or if you're a driver for them? No, we have no idea. We just go about doing our jobs. That's exactly how something like this would be able to be executed and be done. It's way too perfect. It's way too perfect, all separately. And it's way too coordinated. Even the investigation on how they got to Brian. Like, there's like 5 things that there's no way that these happen naturally between DNA, timeline, suspect vehicle 1, connection to the victims. He's a serial killer. I don't even know if I believe if he's an ex-druggie. I've always said that. People disagree with me on that. I don't know. To me, it seems more like he might have been doing controlled buys. I really, really believe that. Yeah, big forehead, big dreams. Way to sum it up. That's perfect. Or it's too perfect until you start peeling back the layers. Yes. Top dog, Big Amish Media. I saw a couple people comment stuff similar to this, but I absolutely agree. There's really only, like I said, one group that would be able to coordinate this all and still, guys, still be able to keep it so secretive. Selective leaks. I am now convinced that these leaks that they're investigating so hard and that there's, all this going on. You can't tell me it's that hard to figure out who the leaks could have come from. Do you know what I mean? Given how much other ring camera footage there could be, how many other store cameras could have caught cars or weird stuff on, on footage that they didn't let out. Nobody that knew Brian's really talking. Nobody is talking at the university that's a student. But yet his prison video leaks, and there's this weird Dateline leak drama. When you step back, if you were planning something, as Big Amish Media said, like a covert operation, you need it to look real as it could. So does that and did that not really help this narrative? I believe that it did. I absolutely think that it did. It gave us an injection of adrenaline of, holy shit, somebody's leaking this. How did that get out? How are they going to do this? And then, oh, wow, hang on. The other coordinated part, Amazon has a multi-part series, which if you've ever been on television, if you've ever filmed anything that needs to be produced, and if you've ever had to go and, either travel to go film somebody or travel to go be on camera for that stuff, there's a ton of planning involved in that. So not only do you have to coordinate with people's schedules, you then have to, wherever you're going to be filming, get it set up, get the crew out there. You have to film. You have to get B-roll. You have to travel back. You have to edit it. You have to get the sound all sunk up, produce it, schedule it, promote it. And wow, Amazon, 2 days after the plea, after probably spending millions of dollars, never had to adjust their docuseries that's going to be never before heard or seen stuff before a trial. If that is a coincidence amongst everything else, well, now the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that I'll talk about is that we're living in a fake world. Like we arguably are. I mean, our food is fake, or everything's fake, right? But now it's like, okay, somebody's manipulating this entire realm, and that we'll go way deeper than the conspiracy here at the University of Idaho. Just before Hurwitz enters this Kohberger case, we learned that this Boise lawyer, Courtney Peterson, was smuggling meth into prison to the leader of the Area Knights. And guess who was already prosecuting that leader of the Area Knights? Hurwitz. So if we were to connect all of these dots, Hive, I think it's safe to say all this entire thing was going on so far in the, like, it was for so much longer than Cking wrote. And it's kind of hard to really fathom, but at the same time, it's very, crystal clear. Nobody has found out the answers as to what could have happened by playing in the realm of just this case. Meaning, if you were to just look at the MPD docs, the ISP footage, 911 call, interviews, I don't even know if you'd be able to figure it out. This sounds arrogant. It sounds cocky. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an instinct. It's not because I'm this genius, okay? It's not how I'm trying for this to sound by any means. But I could just tell with this case, with all the oddities and the coincidences, it's like, even just finding a motive, you're not going to find that in the court docs, right? You have to go look into what was happening before, which in the court docs, that's only really talking about people involved in that situation. So you have to go look into stuff. People obviously have done that. But then you have to also look into, like, when you get these big names and this giant media push and the university's involved and the feds are involved, and for God's sakes, President Trump is talking about it. He's putting out a tweet about a plea deal. The leak. The DoorDash driver video. Molly might have just been a bookend to a timeline. For as much as people say, like, the grub truck doesn't matter, could you guys imagine if we didn't have that Twitch stream and if we didn't have the DoorDash driver? What would we even do as far as a guess goes for the timeline? I don't even know where we'd start. Big Amish media is on fire. When FTO involvement exists, federal interests in national security, intelligence, and counterterrorism often conflict with state-level transparency. Yep. So Candace Marin 4091 says, I mean, it's not outlandish to consider. Trump is coming pretty close to pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell as it stands right now. I've wondered, because obviously this Epstein thing, was going on for a very long time, and then they, Pam Bondi's on the White House lawn saying, yeah, it's on my desk, all this stuff, we're going to see it, all this stuff. I wouldn't put it past somebody really smart who's investigating that to be like, hang on, rather than release the list, the people on this list were being threatened with the release of it anyways and doing whatever they were told. Why don't we do the same thing? Why don't we make them out everybody? Again, like, if this is an operation type look through it, I think way more of that stuff happens than we think. Okay, let's get back to this Idaho 4 thing. All right, so we're going to connect the dots. We have, obviously, the murders are occurring. Kohberger's arrested. Hurwitz, who is very familiar with the violent organized crime in Idaho, he's brought in to essentially seal the deal, or what I'm calling the real cleaner. For Hurwitz, coming in and being the cleaner is that when he finishes the job, he goes and he works for the university's representing law firm for this merger worth hundreds of millions of dollars. James Moen says, and thank you for the super chat again, did Green have the stay-in-place order taken down so panic didn't happen and enrollment suffering? Absolutely. My brain, it's so hard for my brain right now to not just sprint down this path of the thought that I had about, like, truly sophisticated operations. And I think about just wars, false flags, other psyops, like how sophisticated these things will go for, running a coup d'etat, in another country. And I'm like, damn, does this merger come about as a part of this operation? The NIJ giving funding specifically to WSU for predictive criminal behavior. And then after the fact, when this does happen, to James' point about Green taking down the stay in place order so that their enrollment didn't suffer. Well, they got funding for the SAFE Act to prevent violent acts of crime from happening on campus. So it's like, in a weird way, it was like also bridged to prevent a total collapse. You know what I mean? Like they have the safeguard in of that with the funding. There's so many angles of this to unpack, like the murders, who, why, where, how, when, Koberger, who, he did it, how, why did he do it, when did he do it? Scott Green, who used to live in that house or own the house, he then gets the house back, they tear it down. Jury's never going to go through it. They say they're going to build a memorial or some shit. They don't. Ashley Banfield's showing shirtless pictures of Koberger's muffin top. It sounds like a Chat GPT script written on bath salts. That's really what it sounds like. It's absolutely insanity, everybody. And people just ate it up. They ate it up, and they felt righteous for eating it up, and they felt righteous for telling you that you're a piece of people should shame those that defend a murder. Shit, we should shame you for being such a dumbass at this point. I screenshotted so many comments back on TikTok. Had no idea if I was ever going to use it, but I have so many of these people. And the comments were really, they weren't just disagreeing. They were just like over the top. You know what I mean? Oh, damn near threats for saying, hold on. Nobody's saying that we want a murderer to get away with it. We're just saying, what if you got the wrong guy? Have you heard about the timeline? Then guys, I don't know. I don't know how you do all of this unless it's a feds. I can't even do it mentally anymore. It might not have started off as an operation, but damn, I really think between the frats and the hazing, the merger, and everybody saying there's drama with that, Koberger randomly going out there, Hurwitz being involved and then working for this law firm, all of the crazy shit that ever since Steve G said we're going to put Idaho on the map, ever since then, Idaho's been on the map. So Candace Morton says, I don't know why BK though. Look at what they were able to do with him, or at least this character of him that they built. People go, why him? Well, it worked out pretty good for him. Like somebody picked the right guy. What Ellie Mike said. It's like you can absolutely have your way with him. And he knows how to not talk. And their motivation, Shane, top dog comment. On top of that, everybody, the FBI is lobbying tens of millions of dollars every year to be able to use IgG. This case allowed it. It's mind-boggling to wrap your head around. Again, how many things are occurring that seem crazy chaotic because they've been framed in a light by Ashley Banfield and Nancy Grace. And it worked. That's the crazy part, too. It really did work if this is what they did, which, there's not going to be a big reveal. I think that also is something that's hard for people to wrap their head around. It's like, there's not going to be a big reveal. There's not. We did fall right into every single trap along the way if this was intentionally a PSYOP narrative or if it was just a hijacked PSYOP narrative. The whole never let a good crisis go to waste. Right? People are saying, why don't we have more surveillance? Like, yes, use the IgG. I want to spit in a tube right now. CrimeCon. Othram, this huge sponsor. A victim's mother is their spokesperson. Murder being used as a PR rollout for IgG, framed in the light of solving cases. And I really hope that people in here are not naive enough to think that that's all they're going to use this for. Well, and Cat's Mojo, all these photos that we've seen, there's no murder weapon, there's no motive, there's no connection with what they've said to Brian. People can wrap their head around that. But there's so many other oddities with the autopsy reports. They don't match that they were sleeping. Whether or not it was Brian and a fake narrative, like, guys, something completely different happened to them than what we're being told, obviously. But like, not just like a little bit different where there's like two weapons. I'm saying like way different. Something way, way, way different if those autopsy reports are fully accurate. You know what I mean? It's almost hard to wrap your head around the fact that they would try to give that timeline knowing that that's what the autopsy reports would show, which is another aspect of like, why? And James Moe, thank you so much for the super chat. In my honest opinion, Green didn't allow 911 to be called until damage control was taken care of, cleaned, narrative straight, staging. I don't disagree with that, especially even look at the first press conference, right? 3-4 days till he did that. People get so mad not when I just say this, but with everybody. It's like, why do people get upset if you say, is this WITSEC? You know what I mean? If none of them did die, if none of them died, I'm just saying it, and they are in WITSEC, isn't that the best case scenario? And people get the most mad about that. There's a lot of people involved in this case that could do witness protection, right? And it's like, People get so upset about that. I'm like, that is the best case. Nobody died. People got arrested. If this was a staged event and this was to take down a giant trafficking prison gang, why do people get mad about that? It also, to Shane's point, it makes all the sense in the world. Because nothing else makes sense. There's no way all this stuff happens naturally as a coincidence. Everything that we've just talked about. You don't even have to put it together in a corroborating timeline of events. You can just word vomit it out there like I did tonight with, there's this, there's that, and blah, 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 blah. And you can still come to the conclusion that, wow, there's really only one force powerful enough to really make all this happen.